Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the another episode of the C&J Speedway review. My name is Corey Huffnagel, and we are pretty much the home of all NASCAR racing, giving you great results, giving you recaps of what happened throughout the whole entire weekend and whatnot. And we're just basically a show that we just love to have fun most of the time. And so let's go to the hotline right now, and let's chat with a guest who's always a character on the show, who's also the lead host of the Loki and Jabroni show on Tuesday nights, Mr. Chris Burns. How we doing tonight?
Good. How are you, man?
Can't complain. All I could just say was, out of all the years I've seen NASCAR racing, I've never seen a time where it actually snowed. And Sunday night throughout Sunday morning, I just looked at the pictures that were coming in on social media, and I thought to myself, if only Bing Crosby was here, we'd be singing I've been dreaming of white Martinsville instead of I've been dreaming of white Christmas and so forth. But no,
I got to tell you, when you had sent me a message sometime on Saturday that everything was going to get delayed, and then to see the pictures Sunday of exactly all the snow that fell on Martinsville, Virginia, and postponed the race till Monday, I was in shock. But it goes back to something we talked about last week. If we want to run it back real quick, is I really do think that the West Coast swing should start, right about now. It shouldn't end right now. They should maybe have put Texas where Martinsville is. So you now know going into April, you're going to have clear weather. You can get Martinsville out of the way without the threat of snow. But
right.
Who saw it coming? It's the first time in 25 years that a race has gotten snowed out on the NASCAR circuit. And kind of interesting when you think about it, to come back the next day, you see outside when they show the pictures, the mounds of snow. And then you look at the track. It is dry. It is gorgeous, but it is also green. And when the trucks took the track, very green. They laid down enough rubber so that when the Cup guys got out there were a couple of grooves they could work with. And it was, in my opinion, I'm not a big fan of Martinsville racing because of those slow speeds. But man, what a good race. Great passing. All three lanes were available for use. No one was, dreading the top line. They used every inch of that racetrack to their advantage.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, the last time a race got snowed out in the Cup Series, and Chris, you probably remember this. This was back in Atlanta in 1993. So not only that race was snowed out, but they actually had to come back the following Saturday, and they had to run the race, which was won by Morgan Shepherd, I believe. And also what was funny was that Rusty Wallace won the pole that weekend, but actually it was funny because he was on the pole for about a week, and it's actually kind of funny how a driver could do that and stuff. But I actually, when I was doing something on Facebook this past Saturday, one of my friends, Donna Richson, I can't pronounce his last name, so she actually remembers the snowstorm in Atlanta. So this was her quote: "It was a weekend from hell. A lot of snow than this." Which was Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
We were all stranded, no food. Coaches were just starting, and hotels didn't have food, ran out. You couldn't even drive home. Restaurants were closed, no power, no heat.
Wow.
Yep.
And that goes to show you the difference between 25 years ago and now, where the hotels are insanely prepared, generators on site. They're going to have some sort of backup plan if they know snow is coming, especially in the South where they don't get snow all that much in Georgia. So if they hear a snowstorm's coming, they're packing it in. They're doing the right thing now. But 25 years ago, a snowstorm in Atlanta was a freak occurrence. And it just so happened to hit NASCAR weekend that year. And I think you are right. Morgan Shepherd ran away with that race. Rusty Wallace to sit on the pole for a week. What a difference a week makes. Those cars are used to going day after day after day. You get the setup dialed in. They're built for the track. And now they have to sit for a week because they're not allowed to touch the cars.
Right. Exactly.
And you see what happens. You don't get to touch the car for a week, you're not going to do overly well. That really was when we talked about Talladega last October, and I picked the field as a goof because, as we know, the big one collects everybody. That race in Atlanta 25 years ago really did belong to the field. No one had an advantage. Everybody had to sit on their race cars for a week, but it made for some exciting racing, and it was fantastic to watch. It's unfortunate that it took a week to get it run, but hey, you do what you got to do in the NASCAR world.
Exactly. And you go back to Martinsville this past weekend, and honestly, like, nobody didn't even see snow was coming. I mean, nobody didn't expect it was going to snow. And I even looked on the weather last week, and at first they said, well, it's going to be a mixture of rain and snow throughout the whole entire day, and then it's going to change to snow at night. So then I thought, okay, as long as it doesn't like snow out like completely, we should be okay. But then you go to Sunday morning, and I really think NASCAR made a really good call saying, you know what, we have to clean all the snow off the racetrack and off the streets, everything. So we're going to have to cancel a race to Monday, because let's say if you had to run the race that Sunday, it would have been really treacherous, for the fans getting in, getting out, and, not to mention, like, you'd have to have traffic like backed up and all that spots in between. So I'm actually glad that, they got the race in on Monday instead of Sunday. And so, just so they could get all the snow cleaned off and everything. So I think NASCAR did a pretty good job at that.
And let's give a lot of credit to not only the vacuum trucks, but the track themselves. Everybody who works for the Martinsville Speedway did a fantastic job preparing that facility for racing on Monday morning, starting with the trucks at 11 and then the Cup guys at 2. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have known watching that broadcast that a flake of snow fell unless they showed you the outside of the track on some of those overhead shots. And they showed, I think it was hilarious. Some of the guys were having snowball fights. Rodney Childers' kid went and found the biggest hill near the speedway and went sledding.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, and I'm sure not for everybody, but it was a fun time for most of the guys. I'm sure there were some Debbie Downers that sat there and went, "Oh, we're stuck in a snowstorm. What am I supposed to do in my $300,000 luxury Def Leppard Express motor coach?"
Yeah.
You have all the amenities in the world. You can suffer a little snow. God knows we have.
Right.
So, is there any news on the docket you want to talk about before we break down Martinsville? Was there any penalties? Any news that jumped out at you? Go ahead.
So there hasn't been any big news that have came out. Actually, wait a second. There has been 4 lug nut penalties issued, and as I can try and get my computer up, and so the 3 of Austin Dillon, the 12 of Ryan Blaney, the 34 of I think Landon Castle.
Landon Castle.
Yeah, either Landon Castle or wherever that number is. 42 of Kyle Larson were all hit with lug nut penalties. Justin Alexander, Jeremy Bowens, Derek Finley, and Chad Johnson were all fined $10,000 each. So basically, Austin finished 30th. Michael McDowell was in 34. McDowell 21st. Kyle Larson 16th. And Blaney drove it home 3rd. So that was the only penalty that just came out this week.
Okay. One of the things that jumped out at me as a news story, I saw it this morning on MSN, was Kevin Harvick tweeted out that the average age of the winning drivers this year is 38.5. Hashtag old guys rule.
Right.
We spent a lot of time over the winter talking about the youth movement. The youth isn't exactly moving right now. Take away Austin Dillon from that Daytona 500 victory, and it's the elder statesman. Harvick 3 times, MTJ once, and now, hate to break it to you guys, if you're watching this, you didn't see the race. Spoiler alert, Clint Bowyer broke a 190 race winning streak to take home the checkers this weekend.
Yes.
All guys that have been on the circuit for quite a while, all very talented, but they're all the old guys. Which, I said it to you. You were very high on the young guys on the off season, and so am I. But I always say nothing beats experience. There's a reason why guys like Jimmie Johnson and Kevin Harvick and Clint Bowyer and MTJ are winning at an advanced age. You learn as you go. Not everybody can come out of the box like Jeff Gordon did in '94. Not everybody can come out of the box like a Jimmie Johnson did and sustain it for a long time. So to watch what I like to call the old guard, the elder statesmen, get out there and they're showing these kids how it's done, I love it. Would it have hurt my feelings to see a Bubba Wallace or a Chase Elliott or someone be uber competitive this weekend and give the old guys a run for their money? Sure. exciting racing is exciting racing, no matter how you look at it. But the old guys are showing the young pups how it's done.
I definitely agree with that.
So, since I don't have it in front of me, we started, well, I would love to say the weekend, and they tried to start it during the weekend, but we started Monday at 11 a.m. with the Camping World Truck Series, which, strangely enough, didn't have the longest name in history this time.
No, it didn't. It was the Alpha Energy Solutions 250, which is also sponsors the 41 truck of Ben Rhodes. And you look at this race on Monday, and the race only had about 10 cautions, so you had a little bit of the beating, banging, all that sort of thing. But but it was also great racing at the end, especially when it came down between John Hunter Nemechek and Kyle Benjamin. I tell you, I mean, one of those guys was going to win the race, and then you saw on the last lap, I really thought that Benjamin was going to move Nemechek out of the way, but he drove a good race, and he ended up coming home second. And not to mention, John Hunter Nemechek, even though he's running a part-time schedule this year for his family's truck team, and then of course Chip Ganassi in the Xfinity Series, I'm actually really interested to see how many wins he can pick up, not only in the trucks but in Xfinity. But the way that John Hunter drove that race on Monday, I think he ran a good race. He kept his line, and he pretty much held off the 54 at the end.
One of the things, I got to see some of the race. Don't tell my boss. I had the race in my ear via the NASCAR app on my phone. And to hear the name Kyle Benjamin doing so well in that race and really running the race of his life, there's no shame in losing out to John Hunter Nemechek at the end of the race. They said in the radio broadcast, and I don't know what it looked like, and Corey, I don't know if you watched the race, but they said Kyle Benjamin looked like he was driving for his life.
Yeah.
And some of the leads he went out to, I was looking at the crawler when I could, sneak away for a minute and look to see how everybody was doing. There were times where he was running away from the field, and then the field would kind of catch up to him, but then he'd find an extra boost of speed, and he'd run away from the field again. This kid is not done. We're going to see Kyle Benjamin up front more times than we care to count, and I, for one, look forward to it. The Truck Series, much like the Xfinity Series, that's where the young drivers gain all of their confidence, all of their experience, all their skill before they move up to that top level of racing, which is the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Good on you, Kyle. But thank God John Hunter Nemechek finally broke through and got himself that win. It's been long overdue for him.
It has been, and you look at last season, he ended up winning 2 races, and could have went to the championship 4 last year, and circumstances didn't go his way in the playoffs last season. But like I said, he drove a really good race, and he held off the 54 at the end. And come to look at it, Benjamin was actually leading the final 73 laps, and then a caution came out late, and then Nemechek took the lead, I think, with about 8 laps to go, and then he pretty much had to hold off the 54 at the end. And then there was actually one part in the race where I guess there was that multi-truck accident where it took out Stuart Friesen and a couple of other guys. And so from what I saw on the highlight, I guess Johnny Sauter wasn't too happy with Todd Gilliland, because what happened was the 4 pushed the 21 into the 52, and then next thing you know, Friesen ends up spinning, and then a bunch of other trucks ended up checking up, and then some got spun out whatsoever. But that's what typical Martinsville is like. It's beating, banging. Everybody gets moved out of the way most of the time, but that's what I love about short track racing.
Well, of course, when you have, in this case, I think there were 36 trucks on a half-mile raceway, which is flat and shaped like a paperclip, where you're going down that front stretch, and I don't know what the top speed for the trucks are, but I watched a couple of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series guys doing about $130 going down the stretch. Now, keep this in mind, everybody who's watching. You love racing, or else you wouldn't be here. But if you have a friend who doesn't like racing, here, explain it to him like this. You're doing $130 on a straight road. You are killing it. Now, you have to roll that truck or that car down to 60 miles an hour to take that hairpin paperclip turn. You got to get back on the gas. Not to mention, you are sawing that wheel to the left, trying to keep yourself on the track. And if you hit that rumble strip, we saw a bunch of guys in both series this weekend hit the rumble strip, slow them down, and they lost a position or two. There are other guys that were able to use the bumper strips to their advantage. But now, You come out of 60, 65 miles an hour, and you're killing it again. You're going to get back up to speed. By the time you hit 130, you are back on that brake hard. In both races, you saw the undercar cam where the brake rotors are glowing like the sun, because that's how much brake they're using. When you watch the pit stops and they take the tire off and they bounce it. They're bouncing it, and all that brake dust falls out.
Yep.
Those pads go through hell. The car goes through hell. I'm surprised the drivers don't show up at press day like this, because they're sawing the car. Like, yeah, we had a really good day today in the KFC Taco Bell number 83, whatever. It is very demanding physically on these guys. And especially when the 250 and the 500 that you hear on these races, guys, that's not miles. That's laps. So
Right.
you have to do this 1,000 times, twice a lap. Your shoulder, your rotator cuff, and I'm sure all these guys are thanking the Lord that Easter falls this weekend. They can put ice on their shoulders. Maybe they wrap their teeth around a few beers and watch the opening weekend of baseball.
Right.
God knows I've spent my fair share of Easter Sundays at Yankee Stadium, so go Yankees. That's another podcast for another time.
Yeah.
Seriously, to watch these young guys do these physically demanding things at this racetrack and keep themselves out of trouble. And I want to talk about Stuart Friesen in a minute, because I did see that replay when I got home.
Yeah.
Fantastic for them, and no better place to learn short track racing than in Martinsville, Virginia.
And not to mention, when you're driving on the short tracks, you always have to have good brakes, because if you don't have brakes, you're not going to have a good car at the end. And, that's just how it all goes, on the short tracks. And not to mention, like, if you do hit that rumble strip, you are going to lose a couple positions in. You're going to lose time going out of the corner and so forth.
I don't want to take too much away from the truck guys, but at the tail end of the truck race and sometime during the cup race, did you happen to see the video package on Kenseth and Logano?
I did.
Did you hear the radio conversation? I know one of them played the radio conversation, but not the other.
I believe so, and I think that was back in 2015, if I'm correct, right?
You are correct, and that was
okay.
Still, I know we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and it was still to this day, people. I saw the breakdown online. They showed that same video, and underneath it were like, "I'm glad Matt's gone. He was dirty. He was dirty. Oh, Joey deserved it. Matt couldn't turn the car." And someone said the most poignant thing ever on a racing thread ever. He goes, "You guys are so full of yourself. I don't even know why I'm reading this. You cheer and you canonize Dale Earnhardt Jr. Not
right.
Junior, Senior. You
Senior.
put him on this pedestal. He is Saint Dale. He made a career out of turning people, and you look the other way. Jeff Gordon would bump and run. Basically, if you don't know bump and run, he's going to run into your back bumper, make you wiggle a little bit, take the air off you, and he's going to slingshot around you. Think Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
For those uninitiated, think Ricky Bobby. Gordon, they look the other way. But because Matt Kenseth is not Senior, Gordon, whomever, he's somewhere in here. He's a beloved guy. Everybody in the garage loves him. But that day, he PO'd a lot of 22 fans and a lot of other fans too. But the radio communication clearly said, "I'm having trouble. I can't turn the car. We are going to wreck." Right. Just so happens, is it a little fishy that Logano was right there? To me, yes. But he was telling them, "I'm having troubles turning the car."
Right.
Guys, let it go. Let this be the end of it. But one thing that can happen, especially at a place, and I wanted to bring that up because we talked about the guy sawing the wheel 1,000 times, heavy to the left. If your car can't turn at a place like Daytona, at a place like Bristol, where you have big, sweeping, wide, high-banked corners, you can adjust. You can make that car turn without sawing the wheel. In Martinsville, if you can't turn, it is you and a concrete wall. That's it.
Yep.
So let that be the end of the debate. If it rages more debate, go to @cburns19 on Twitter and tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll promptly tell you why I'm right.
Yeah, you're probably going to get a lot of Twitter complaints by the time this is over. And I actually want to make a little bit of a comparison. So you talk about the incident between Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano back in like 2015. And that was when, Matt said, I'm having trouble steering with the car, et cetera, and so forth. Go back to 2002. Now, you have to remember this pretty well because 2002, the Truck Series were racing one time, and there was one point in that race where Kevin Harvick took out Coy Gibbs on the racetrack. But what was actually interesting was that he told on the radio saying, I'm going to go after the 20 truck of Gibbs. So that next thing you know, NASCAR caught that, and they said, you know what, since you spun him out, we're going to take you out of the race and so forth. So
they parked him.
And the next day, NASCAR parked him after that. So if you think of the two comparisons, you go to Kenseth saying like, "Oh, I'm having trouble steering with the car," it gets into the 22, boom. Then you go to 2002, where Kevin Harvick took out Coy Gibbs, even though he said it on the radio. NASCAR caught it, boom, parked him, and so forth. But this is what I love about short track racing, and and I don't know if you watch the races at like Bowman Gray Stadium, but that's a really tight short track, and if anybody has a tough time making passes on that track, it's just you just have to do everything you can. But this is what I love about short track racing. I just love it when when there's payback coming. Between the first and second place guy. That's what people love about. And when somebody takes somebody out, that's when everybody's like, yeah, that stuff in between. But yet again, like that's what I love about it.
Oh, I can remember, we're talking about short flat tracks. New Hampshire, I want to say it was 2011 or 2012. Can't remember. July race. It was Marcus Ambrose, the Aussie sensation, and the number 9 Twisted T car. And
Yep.
Kevin Harvick, which I believe was still in the 29.
Yes.
Again, we would go back to Harvick. Everybody's got him, but just stuck in my mind. Of course, I've got the scanner. I've got the headset. The person I'm with, they have their headset. And it's, we've got them going between Junior and Harvick and whatever. And Harvick's channel happened to pop up. If the 9 bumps into me again, I'm taking him out. We are 8 laps into this race, and he is driving like an idiot.
Yeah.
If he bumps into me again, I'm going to turn him. Well, he did it again. He's not giving him any room, and I don't know if there's highlights of it out there. I'm sure you can go to YouTube. And when you're on YouTube, please go subscribe to our channel while we're here. Harvick turns him. The beauty of that is, by turning Ambrose, he took out Juan Pablo Montoya at the same time, so everybody wins. Right. Juan Pablo's not setting things on fire anymore.
No.
But at a short track, tempers run high. I was impressed that a lot more little paybacks, little nudges, little bump and runs weren't done in these 2 races. They were relatively clean races all the way around.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, without further ado, if we could hear the top 10, and we'll go into happiness and disappointment.
All right, so top 10 for the Alpha Energy Solutions 250. John Hunter Nemechek ends up winning the race. Kyle Benjamin comes home second. Brett Moffitt, Atlanta winner, comes home third. Grant Enfinger fourth. Noah Gragson rounds out the top 5. Then you have Myatt Snyder sixth. Virginia native Timothy Peters comes home seventh in the Ricky Benton truck. Great props for him. Harrison Burton ends up finishing 8th. Austin Hill 9th. And Justin Haley rounds out the top 10. So then other notables, you talk about Stuart Friesen ends up coming home 20th. You have Ben Rhodes, the pole sitter, end up finishing 12th. Crafton ended up finishing 15th. Jennifer Jo Cobb 29th. Todd Gilliland 14th. And Johnny Sauter 19th.
All right. So of all of that, it's too easy for me to give my happy, joy to John Hunter Nemechek. How many times I've said, this is going to be the week he's going to win. This is going to be the week he's going to win. And every week that I pick him to win, he finishes 20, 21st, 23rd. He'll get in an accident. The tire will go down. Something happens. I don't pick him. He wins the race. So that's my happiness. My disappointment, obviously, not for anything he did, but because of the wreck he got collected in. Stuart Friesen had a really good truck from what I heard on the radio broadcast.
Yeah.
Then he gets caught up in the wreck. Having seen the replay, him and Gilliland I don't know if they're going to do it when the Truck Series returns in a couple weeks. These 2 guys need to stop playing peekaboo with each other. This isn't Days of Thunder. This isn't Talladega Nights. This is real life professional racing. If you guys can't stop, you're going to end up behind the wall each and every single freaking week that you keep playing this game with each other.
Right. So, my happiness and my impress of the week had to be Timothy Peters, and this is the first time he's been back in a truck. I think since about a year or so, because the last time he was in a truck race, I think he was in Texas last year in June, and that was when he had that flip for from like MDM Motorsports and stuff, and thank goodness he came out of there unscathed and so forth. But it's his home track, and he's won there before, and I'm glad to see Timothy finish in the top 10, and hopefully he can get a truck ride pretty soon and so forth. Um, my disappointment definitely is going to have to say Stuart Friesen, because started in the top 5, looked as if he had a really good truck. Maybe like a top 5, if not maybe a win if things played out. Then he gets caught up in that multi-truck wreck and so forth. But keep this in mind. I really think that this is going to be the dark horse team to watch out for this season, because now that Halmer Racing is aligned with GMS Racing, even though they get all their engines, they got all their alliances and so forth. Look at what they did at Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. They finished in the top 10. They won a stage. And this is going to be a team where, I think they're going to run up front most of the races, and, they could possibly steal a win before the playoffs even start. I mean, heck, they could win a race before we even get to Eldora in July, because that's where, Stewart has run really well in the dirt tracks, throughout his whole entire career. But I'm looking at that 52 team right now, and it wouldn't really surprise me if he wins a race sometime soon.
Sooner than later, absolutely. I can't disagree with you at all on that. Definitely would like to see Stuart Friesen be in that top 5, be that contender, be the driver we know he is. Again, if him and Gilliland can't stop messing with each other, they're going to ruin their own season. And that's not going to get you any sponsor dollar, and that's not going to get you any love if your contract is coming up. Stop farting around.
Right. And just remember, Todd's taking over the 4 truck for the remainder of the season. So once he turns 18, right around Charlotte weekend, then he's in the 4 truck for the rest of the season.
Is that a KBM?
Yes.
Okay, well, look at that. Moving on up like George and Wheezy right now. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, quick question. If we're doing a recap later, guys, if you don't know about the best and the worst, maybe we should do this every 6 races. That gives us 6 times a year that we can do it, which is fantastic.
Right.
Are we overdue? Are we looking over Texas this week? Or are we doing that when we come back on Monday?
I would say we should do that like when we come back. No, wait. I think we're doing the show next Thursday, right?
Is it Thursday or Monday? We'll go over that before guys. We'll let you know we're coming back.
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah.
It's all Corey's fault. It's all Corey's fault.
Yeah.
No big deal. It's all good. Oh, yeah. So moving right along.
All right.
There he goes, guys. He's doing his job. Look at him go.
Okay, so anybody who saw the race on Monday, Clint Bowyer was the talk of the town Monday afternoon. He ended up winning the STP 500. Not only he wins the race, but he ends up breaking a 190 race winless drought, dating all the way back from Charlotte in 2012. Think about this. Yeah. He hasn't won in like a couple years. And, and I said this all along. I really think that this was going to be a team where I think they could probably steal a win in the regular season. Not sure how they're going to do in the playoffs this year, but I'm going to be taking a really close look on how that 14 team does in the regular season this year. But anyways, I was really happy that Clint Bowyer ended up winning. It was a long time coming, and not to mention, there was that one time when he was involved in that whole Richmond controversy where he spun himself out, to let then teammate Martin Truex in, and then pretty much NWR with the whole hoopla scandal and everything and so forth. But, anyways, Clint Bowyer, I'd say from last year to this year, I really think they have this team turned around. And if you look at last year, the chemistry just wasn't there between him and the crew chief, Mike Bugger Ravage. Because there were a couple of races where, they could have won, but then there were races where, they got into accidents, like not in their own doing. And then, there were races where they were frustrated with each other. They hated each other's guts. There was actually one race, I think this was at like Talladega, where Bowyer got out of his car and then, he just walked off into like the pit area because, he said, you know what, I'm done with this. So be it. But no, anyways, congrats to Clint Bowyer. Really happy for SHR. And like I said, I really think that Stewart-Haas Racing is going to be a one to watch for in 2018.
No, it's funny you say that because that was going to be my point. The Stewart-Haas guys, think about this. There's been 6 races. Of the 6, 4 of them have been won by Stewart-Haas Racing. Last
Yes.
year, kind of a feeling out period. SHR switches to Ford, which blew a lot of people's minds. Tony Stewart, for as long as I can remember, ran Chevrolet and or never a Ford. Never a Ford.
No.
So for SHR to switch to Ford, that was a huge leap of faith on Tony Stewart and Gene Haas's part. And kudos to them. They saw something that we didn't. Again, that's why they make the big bucks, and we sit here on Wednesday night and talk about it. But having said that, at the beginning of the season, and we saw it during Speed Weeks, and you and I talked privately, not on camera, and I said, they've got the Fords figured out. This is going to be a fun season to watch. Every Ford team is starting to really come up. I did not expect Stewart-Haas to be the one leading the charge. I expected a win or two. Instead, we have 4 for Stewart-Haas Racing.
Yeah.
Clint Bowyer, in my mind, forget Kurt Busch and his 1-year contract. Forget Almirola taking over the 10 from Danica Patrick. I honestly thought that if Clint Bowyer could not find some success this year, he was going to be the odd duck, and you'd be seeing Clint Bowyer looking for a ride come November when the season ends. What he did, not only snapping that 6-year, 190-race drought, was good on his part because he had a great car. When he got up front, no one could touch him. Kyle Busch had a car that could almost get him, but it just seemed like Kyle Busch either ran out of energy, determination, or something.
Right.
And Kyle Busch, once again, comes home second place. Enough second place finishes that he's currently in the points lead. But Bowyer had something special on Monday. It was fun to watch him. And there were a lot of people, and I won't name names because maybe they're watching, and I don't want to embarrass anybody. But when Stewart stepped down and he announced that Clint Bowyer was going to take that car a full year in advance, all I heard was, why is he choosing that bum? Well, Tony Stewart is not going to pick a bum. Tony Stewart did a lot of thought, and he put a lot of energy into who do I want to put in my car? Who do I trust? Who do I think is going to make the biggest impact for me in the 14 at Stewart-Haas Racing? He made the right choice. All you haters, thank you, F you, bye. Clint Bowyer just proved every one of you wrong on Monday.
And not to mention, Bowyer is also a dirt racer, so I think that's the one thing that Tony Stewart pretty much saw out of him.
Because they know how to handle these cars, especially dirt track racers. If you've ever gone to see the Outlaw Winged Sprints and the midgets, I love watching them, cut that wheel to the left, and when that butt end comes out from underneath, they cut the wheel back to the right to save it, and they do it every single lap. They are fighting that car just to make it go faster. It's a gorgeous thing to watch. If you're a race fan, I implore you, especially my favorite place is US 24 Speedway in Logansport, Indiana. What a great place to watch racing. If you're ever out that way, go to Logansport, enjoy a race.
Definitely.
So, man, I don't want to jump the gun here, but the one thing I kind of want to talk about is how often did you not hear them mention Jimmie Johnson during this race?
I don't think you probably heard a lot of them during the race, but
I heard his name 3 times.
3 times, yep. But
three times.
But considering the fact that he finished in the top 15, decent run, but could be a little bit better though.
I asked last week, even after, was it 9th place last week? I asked, are they hitting the panic button? I actually had the opportunity in the last couple of days to talk to some fans of the 48. They are full on hand hovering right over the button right now.
Yeah.
Wanting answers, wanting results. Guys, the only thing I can equate this to is when you watch a champion or multi-time champion swinging into the, I don't want to say the twilight of his career, but here's something to think about. Rusty Wallace didn't win a whole lot of races coming toward the end of his career. Neither did Dale Earnhardt. Neither did Darrell Waltrip. Neither did Richard Petty. Okay, Richard Petty, after winning the Firecracker 400 in 1984, won exactly 0 races for the next 7 years. Okay, Jimmie Johnson will find a win again. Jimmie Johnson will be a contender for the championship again. It will be this year. I understand because you are so conditioned for success. A Yankee fan could say this. In the last decade, a Red Sox fan could say this. When you have a losing season or you have some bumps in the road and some difficulty, it is easy to go, oh God, what do we do now? Well, you sit
Right.
back and you wait because there's a pedigree behind it. Jimmie Johnson's not done. If you are a 48 fan, move your hand up just a little bit. Don't have it right next to that panic button. He is going to surprise you sometime in the next, I would say, looking at the schedule like I did the other day, 3 to 5 weeks. Easter break, then you go to Texas. Somewhere in that 3 to 5 week span, whether it's Texas, Dover, wherever, tracks that he is notoriously good on.
Yeah.
You're going to see Jimmie Johnson in victory lane. I'm saying
Oh,
nice
definitely.
things about Jimmie Johnson. I must be crazy.
Right.
You
And you
still
go to
haven't taken
Texas
that.
where he's won like
You
yeah,
still
that's
haven't taken
still a
that
work in
picture down.
progress. That's still a work in progress right now. So but but anyways, you go to Texas and I think he's only won there like 6, 7 times, I want to say, but I got to say this. If Jimmie doesn't win at Texas, then I'm probably going to have to say to myself, what's wrong with 48? Because, yet again, like this is pretty much the part of the season where he kind of wins early and then summer he struggles. Playoffs, he's kind of fair but decent. And then you saw what happened last year in the playoffs. Could have made it to the championship 4, and then he had the flat tire at Phoenix, and that cost him his chance and so forth. But you look at the results for Hendrick on Sunday. Not only Jimmie Johnson came home 15th, you got Chase Elliott who comes home 9th. You have Alex Bowman who comes home 7th. And then you have William Byron who comes home 20th. So if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, most of the Hendrick guys finished in the top 20. And I was really impressed, on how well Alex Bowman ran that race on Sunday. Drove his marks. He drove a good race. Could have had a shot at finishing in the top 5. But then yet again, I was happy that 88 car ran pretty well, this past Sunday. And then next thing you know, Chase Elliott, he comes home 9th, and pretty sure, my lock of the race didn't even do anything. And I'd say after that, I pretty much called shenanigans. But no, but you look at Hendrick. I mean, yeah, they had some good runs this Sunday, and I'm really expecting a lot more out of them. Once we get out of the Easter break, and hopefully this time in the after Easter, they have to like literally do something.
Mm-hmm. When you're a 4-car team like Hendrick is, and you come home, and like Stuart Haas is, and you come home with all 4 of your cars finishing on the upper half of the race and in fantastic shape, especially at a short track, that's a victory. I don't
Right.
think, maybe I'll go first then. Before you run down the top 10, my biggest happy moment, other than Clint Bowyer, which I went to social media, I went to Twitter, I went to Facebook, I went to our page and said, "Congratulations, Clint Bowyer! Great job." I like Clint Bowyer. Never bought his gear. Don't often root for him, but if he's up front, I don't have a problem with it. My biggest surprise, you already mentioned him, was Bowman the Showman. Alex Bowman really put on a racing clinic for all the young drivers.
Right.
Stay patient, hit your marks, heavy on the brake, heavy on the speed, in the way we talked about it earlier. Heavy on the brake in the corner, heavy on the speed in the straights. Patience. Not only patience, but respect. I watched him go close to door with Kurt Busch a couple times when Busch was battling back to the front. Kyle Busch, not Kurt. And
Right.
he could have rubbed him. He could have got squirrely. Bowman held that wheel like it was the last thing on earth he had to hold on to. And if he let go of it, they were going to shoot him. Alex Bowman, that in-car camera, I used to think it was a distraction watching the race. I learn a lot when I watch those in-car cameras. And to watch Bowman work that car masterfully, you would have thought he'd been out there for 13 years on the Cup Series. And then you think to yourself, it's only like his 3rd active year, his first full year of competition. That he was driving like a vet. That's my happy moment. My disappointment, obviously, is going to go to Bubba Wallace. Man, can this guy have any more bad luck? second place in Daytona, and a hill of garbage since.
Yeah. Well, actually, before I go to the top 10, I gotta say my happy moment is definitely gonna be AJ Allmendinger. Comes home eighth on Sunday, and what a good race he ran for that JTG Doherty car, and was glad to see him run finish in the top 10. So that was a really good moment for him. And then my disappointment, my disappointment. Yeah, my disappointment's gonna have to be Austin Dillon.
Yeah.
So.
Just another string of bad luck. But Austin Dillon has had some good runs leading up to Martinsville. Let's take Daytona out of the equation. Again, Daytona 500, everybody goes in with a clean slate. Yep. Somebody has to win it. The last couple weeks, he's been up and down. He hasn't quite had Bubba Wallace luck. You know, another guy we kind of glanced past who could have been a disappointment was Denny Hamlin. Had a really good car early on. Just a whole bunch of stuff goes on, and he inches toward the back. Then he comes up front. Then he inches toward the back. It was like he couldn't find that car all day.
Right.
What worked? What didn't work? You know, he goes in for this adjustment, something else goes south. He goes to get that fixed, something else goes south. It was as if the car was working against him this weekend.
All right, so going to the top 10, Clint Bowyer ends up winning the race. Kyle Busch ends up finishing second. Ryan Blaney finishes in third. Martin Truex Jr., the pole sitter, finishes fourth. Kevin Harvick rounds out the top 5. Then you have Joey Logano 6th, Alex Bowman 7th, AJ Allmendinger 8th, Chase Elliott 9th, and Brad Keselowski rounds up the top 10. So notables, let's see. Kurt Busch ends up finishing 11th, Denny Hamlin 12th, Paul Menard 13th, Almirola 14th, Johnson 15th, Eric Jones 17th, Daniel Suarez 18th, Newman 19th, William Byron 20th, David Reagan 25th, Casey Kane 24th, Jamie McMurray 26th, Austin Dillon 30th, Bubba Wallace ends up finishing 34th, and Stenhouse 37th.
You just mentioned Jamie McMurray, and what a hit that car took when it went around. Again, it goes to show you, we often talk about the safety measures of the car, but the safety measures of the track over the years, where those safer barriers, and for those of you who don't know, safer is steel and foam energy reduction. Safer, S-A-F-E-R. When you go to a track like Corey, I don't know if you did the track walk at New Hampshire, but every track Angela and I go to, we do the track walk. We go down in the pits, and the first year the safer barriers came out, I went over and I kind of looked at it and I wiggled it and I would, push on the foam, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. They're going to tear this up. I actually watched a video on YouTube a couple years ago that showed how the safer barriers are constructed. To see that when these guys take a driver's side hit onto those walls, they're not walking away with broken bones, contusions, concussions, whiplash, whatever. They're unbuckling the window net. They're taking off the Hans device. They're getting out. They're waving to the people, and they walk away relatively pain-free. Again, it goes back to the 5-point harness. It goes back to the head and neck restraint. Hans device, look it up. Head and neck. Boom. Hans. Safer barriers. All the safety that they've put in since 2001 have really extended some of these guys' careers. Sterling Marlin could still be racing if they had a lot of that stuff way early on in his career. Ward Burton, same thing. There were a bunch of guys that raced too long, and every time I see Morgan Shepherd, I just shake my head. Like, why, dude? You're 104. Let it go. But, God bless him, Teddy Christopher used to go out and do the New Hampshire races every year, and he was 156 years old, and but he had fun doing it. And it's a much different era now than it was then. Take this into consideration. The cars are extremely faster. The aero on it is fantastic. The hood and roof flaps that keep the car grounded have saved more lives than probably any other one single safety feature has ever done in racing. So you add all those things together, you're extending careers, you're extending lives, and for the most part, I'm sure these guys are happy to be able to retire like Dale Jr. in his early 40s, where you don't have to be 55, 56, Rusty Wallace, Darrell Waltrip, etc., Harry Gant, and be old and
Right.
still running a race car because, A, you didn't save your money, right? Rusty Wallace is an anomaly because he saved the hell out of his money. That's a man doing well right now.
Yeah.
But, some of these other guys had to race to keep food on the table, had to race to keep the mortgage paid, but their squash was all messed up. I got to meet Harry Gant many times over the years, and each year that I see him and I meet him, he's a little less functional.
Right.
They talk about racers racing with their eyes bulging out of their head, and they would have a cast. Terry Labonte had a cast one time, broke his wrist in a few different places, and on
96.
the cast it had a ring. 96, same year he won the cup.
Yep.
Where it would clip to the steering wheel, so he could pull with the left hand and have the right hand guide, and he can always have two hands on the wheel doing his thing. Had to be painful, but that was the mentality of these guys. Whereas now, a guy like Junior doesn't pass the concussion protocol, or Kyle Busch breaks a leg, you put somebody in that car, you worry about your health. We're extending careers and we're extending lives now, and I'm all for it.
I am too, and I really applaud, how NASCAR has done with safety the last couple of years, and not only that they added the safer barriers on the outside of the track, but more importantly that they added safer barriers on the inside part of the racetrack. Because let's say like if Kyle Busch hadn't have hit that wall going into like the inside part of the racetrack at Daytona, we wouldn't even be talking about safer barriers all around the racetrack. But there actually was a time where I guess they were racing at Watkins Glen a few times, throughout the last couple of years, and there were drivers that were saying that we really need safer barriers because every time like when they hit that steel barrier, whatever it is, like that Armco barrier, like it literally just has like a huge crash. And I remember one time there was one where David Rudiman flipped over at Watkins Glen, and that created a huge multi-car crash. And and I guess there was a couple of drivers that said, we need safer barriers, on the road courses and so forth. Because there's actually some parts on road courses that don't have any like safer barriers, but they also have like that concrete wall. So not to mention, like you hit that concrete wall, it's like literally hitting.
Oh yeah,
like,
look at the hairpin at Sonoma, which always treacherous. And I always wondered, what are they going to do if a guy cut across, just made a hard right, scooted across? I know
with no brakes.
The barrels. Yeah, with no brakes, just do it, run it. But we'll go back to Matt Kenseth at Martinsville. If the same fate befell a driver now at Sonoma or at Watkins Glen, and the car has to be able to turn right, left at equal camber, and you lose your steering, especially in that hairpin at Sonoma, where yes, you see the barrels, and yes, you see the rumble strip. What you don't see is that was a 16-inch thick concrete wall that basically outlines the turn. It has been fitted with safer barriers, which knocked off 8 to 10 inches. So instead of, say, 4 lanes of racetrack right there in the hairpin, you now have 3 lanes of racetrack. Tough. Deal with it. You're a professional driver. Get over it. This is safer for you. Did it ruin the racing any? No, because they went too wide into that corner. Speaking of too wide, how many times during that Cup race were you smiling to watch even the truck race, to see them go 3-4 wide into those hairpin turns?
I was like literally on the edge of my seat, and I'm going, whoever doesn't spin going in that corner, is going to be pretty lucky.
Absolutely. But no, another great race. I was very excited. I'm not usually a big Martinsville fan. Martinsville and Pocono are those take it or leave it tracks for me. But it was great to see the guys out there busting it and really putting on a good show. Relatively caution free as well. With the exception of the McMurray spin, the competition caution, and one other, I don't think there were many cautions in that race.
No, I mean there wasn't that much cautions. I mean, even though you had the stage cautions and the competition, and the only accident of the day was the 1 and 3. I mean, It looked as if it was basically a clean race. I mean, there were some moments, where I guess some guys were beating the hell out of each other and so forth. But there was actually one part, and I think you probably remember this, but there was one part in the race where I guess Kevin Harvick brake checked the 11, and because what happened was Denny tapped the fours rear bumper saying like, you're in my way whatsoever, blah blah blah, and then you can pretty much hear Harvick jamming on the brakes, and then the 11 just runs right into him, and then he tells Mike Wheeler saying, "Check the nose because the four brake check me," and so forth. And usually when you brake check somebody, that's like kind of like unusual that happens, but when you're tagging a guy's bumper for like the last 2 or 3 laps, whatever, the guy in front of you is just gonna be like, you know what, I had enough of this, so yeah.
And I'm not sticking up for Kevin Harvick, even though you can look behind me and see all the gimmickry and the shirt and all that mess. Martinsville's not the place where you want to be trying a bump and run. Out of the corner, perhaps, yes. Do I think Hamlin was wrong? No, he's running just as hard. But as we saw during that race, not that Harvick had a car to win, but he certainly had a better car than the 11. And the 11, just no matter what he tried, couldn't get around the 4. So, yeah,
Right.
he's going to try anything he can to maybe loosen him up and get by him. Well, problem with that,
Right.
Denny, is eventually Kevin's going to catch you, Kevin's going to pass you, and you're going to be right back where you started from, staring at the back bumper that says "Freaky Fast Jimmie Johns." So,
Exactly.
while I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but you know, it's really not the place. It's flat, it's tight. You do that at Bristol, you do that in New Hampshire. If you want to talk short tracks, you can do that even at Richmond, but you can't do that at Martinsville because you're just in so close quarters. You might have Harvick in front of you and you're Denny Hamlin and you're bumping and doing this, but if Harvick wiggles and let's say he has the 14 on the outside, now you've just taken 2 guys out. Bad for business. So, again, outside looking in, video game guy, drives on the highway every day. I drive for a living, basically. So,
Yeah.
be cognizant of what's around you. Don't be a jerk for the sake of being a jerk. And if you're a professional race car driver, you have to keep in mind it's not just the guy in front of you. There's the whole gaggle of people around you that you have the potential to ruin their day.
Exactly.
So now comes the part where Corey is going to lead us through best and worst, and you can ask the questions and we will answer them. And I'm going to turn around for a moment, and Corey is going to walk you through best and worst. How is this going to work?
All right. So the way how it's going to work out is, we're gonna share what our best and worst moments is throughout the 2018 season by far, and I was actually kind of thinking about this moments ago. I said, why don't we have like a best and worst moment, like whenever like the Cup guys are off, like one weekend and so forth, because I think the Cup Series only has like 2 off weekends or maybe a few off weekends. I can't remember how many, but and we'll just give us our take. You know, what we've seen best and worst so far at the start of the season, like pretty much from Daytona all the way up to now, and all that.
Well, if I'm going to be the guy starting, and I guess that's the way it's going to be, I don't know. You haven't said anything. I'm just
Right.
going to say the emergence of Stewart-Haas as dominant. Uh,
Yep.
you look at these race results in Daytona. It was the 10, Eric Almirola, that had a chance to win. Unfortunately, he didn't. We all saw what happened. Then you have Harvick win the next 3. Then he crashes out in California, but you have Kurt Busch that ran pretty well. And then this past weekend, you have Clint Bowyer. So a strange scenario is going on right now when it comes to Stewart-Haas racing. They finally have I'm going to kick myself in the rear end for saying this. Stewart-Haas has a Hendrick-style lineup. And when I say that, it means all 4 of these guys have the potential. Harvick, Bowyer are already in. Now you have Kurt Busch, former champion, Eric Almirola, not necessarily an upstart, but not a veteran. He's in that crazy gray area in the middle. You have this opportunity now where Stewart-Haas could easily place all 4 cars into that 16 field when it comes to September and the playoffs
Yeah.
begin. I think it's fantastic, not just because I happen to wave the flag for a Stewart-Haas guy, but when you can see a team who historically there's one driver or two drivers that are the stars of the show, and then you have a couple of also-rans underneath. They have four superstars. This is Hendrick all over again. This goes back to, I want to say it was the 97 Daytona 500 where Jeff Gordon wins, Labonte's in second, Ricky Craven's in third. The entire Hendrick team tells the Daytona 500, you are now, I don't want to say it, we made you our woman, if you will.
I'm a woman.
We don't cuss on this show except once. I did it last week, but it was a quote by Rodney Childers, and I can get away with that. However, yeah, they basically took that race, turned it on its stomach, and spanked it on the bottom. And that's when you think of domination in NASCAR, you think Hendrick Motorsports. Stewart-Haas Racing has that right now. So I guess my first best of would be the emergence of Stewart-Haas. As we watch these races, there's always a Stewart-Haas guy up front. If he's not winning, he's second, fourth, fifth. They put all four cars in the top 10 not long ago. So this is a team to watch. And in my opinion, your champion for 2018 is going to come out of Stewart-Haas Racing. I call it here first.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not really surprised at that at all. And, I have to say my best and worst moment this year, my best would definitely have to be Stewart-Haas Racing because, you think about last year when they made the switch over to Ford. And, a lot of people said, like, how are they going to do with this new manufacturer? Like, it's going to take them time, to figure this whole thing out. Then you go to June where Harvick ended up winning at Sonoma. And then, Kurt Busch, well, actually, it started off with Kurt Busch winning the Daytona 500. Then you had Harvick winning at Sonoma. And then once the playoffs started, Ford seemed to be pretty dominant. Actually, they were right there in the mix a couple times. And then, of course, you had Harvick winning at Texas. Goes to the championship 4. Didn't really do as much as what people expected because, Harvick's a former champion and whatnot. Then you go to this year. Okay, Danica Patrick leaves. You put in Eric Almirola. So I pretty much said to myself, Almirola can bring some really good things at the table because, A, we've pretty much seen how he does on the restrictor plate tracks, and he's won a couple of plate races, at Daytona and Talladega in the Xfinity Series, so he's known for that. But then, of course, you go to the start of the year. I thought, well, let's just see how they do after Daytona and all that stuff. But then, excuse me. Then, of course, you have Harvick winning 3 races, and then Bowyer ends up winning last Monday at Martinsville, and no question about it. But then, you have Kurt Busch. He had a few top 10s this year, and then Eric Almirola, he's been in the mix a couple of times myself. So I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a team where I think, they're going to win a ton of races this year in the regular season. And not to mention, the mile and a halfs this year, I really think that's going to be Kevin Harvick's strong suit because we've seen how he does. We've seen how he did at the mile and a halfs at Atlanta and Las Vegas, pretty much goes out, dominates, and win. Then you go to Clint Bowyer, I say, he's going to win a few races, coming down the stretch. And there's some really good racetracks that has some really good of his strong suit and whatever. Kurt Busch, I could see him in the mix most of the time. And then Eric Almirola, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins at Talladega in a couple weeks because, we saw how he did the Daytona 500. He was close to winning. He got spun on the last lap, which he was basically blocking, and he did what he had to do to win the 500 whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, I look at it right now. I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 of them, make the playoffs this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or maybe 3 of the 4 make the championship 4 this year. And then my worst moment, would definitely have to be Hendrick Motorsports, considering the fact that they haven't got off to a great start this year. And, of course, Jimmie Johnson, he hasn't been putting up championship numbers, everybody's expecting to be as well. But then what's actually kind of strange is that they've made a lot of driver changes. So think about it. Jeff Gordon leaves in 2015. Dale Jr. leaves last year. So now, you just have to restart all over again. So you have Alex Bowman, who's going to be running full time, and you have William Byron that's going to be taking over the seat. You got Chase Elliott, who's running is only his second year, and he's close to winning a race sometime. soon. And then, of course, Jim, the elder statesman of the series, who's, yet and destined to try and win a record eighth championship, of his career. But I look at him, and I say, okay, this isn't the Hendrick Motorsports that everyone was expecting. But I have to say, after the Easter break, Rick's probably going to talk to his team, his drivers, his crew chiefs, and say, okay, guys, look, we need to start winning races. We need to start being competitive, and we need to start running up front more. So I think if you look at it, I would say that if none of the Hendrick guys make the playoffs this year, including Jimmie Johnson, I'd be really surprised.
That's the fair assessment. I agree with it all, but I'm going to have to take a moment to say that my disappointment so far is almost a tie. And it's not so much a team more as it is individuals. And this goes to Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin. I don't know what they're doing. Every time they get near the front, they seem to have issues that move them to the back. I don't know if it's them inside the car, the crew that is putting together the car, the crew that's taking care of the car during the race. Those are two guys that I expect to see. I would have expected to see a win out of either of them so far, and we haven't. So, again, we talk about hopefuls. Recently, we started to give our hopefuls. I am hopeful that sometime between now and Memorial Day, you're going to see the 11 and the 2 both in victory lane. But there's something going on with those two guys individually. For the Penske team and for the Gibbs team, something's not connecting. Especially when you look at Gibbs and you have Kyle Busch, who just notched his fourth, not straight, but his fourth second place finish. Yeah, his fourth second place finish in 6 races. He's destined to win. Where's Denny? You never know. He's either going to be in second or third here. He's going to be in 34th here. He's going to be in 12th here. There's a problem with that, and Keselowski has been just as up and down this entire season. But we're only 6 in, so I really don't want to go panic button yet.
Right. But then, of course, you look at Ryan Blaney. Of course, he finished his third top 5 finish since I can't remember when his best finish was. But actually, what was funny was you go back to that race on Monday, and the 3 stages were basically, just 3 different drivers that everybody thought was going to have a shot to win. Stage 1, goes to Denny Hamlin. Everybody thought, okay, looks like the 11's going to be tough to beat. Then you have Ryan Blaney, who led a total of 115 laps in stage 2, pretty much dominates the whole entire second stage. So everybody thought that, the 12 car was going to have a shot to win. I thought that Ryan Blaney was going to win the race, no question about it. But what was interesting was that the 14 car, Clint Bowyer, was creeping up closer and closer, as the end of stage 2 was getting down to it. And then once stage 3 hit, it was just all Clint Bowyer leading 215 laps and then ends up winning the race. So, I mean, if you look at Ryan Blaney, I mean, I talk about him mostly all the time, and I really think he's going to be a kid that's going to win a race sometime soon. And then, of course, you look at Kyle Busch. He's close to winning a race. I mean, it's only a matter of when at this point, because the way that team is running really good right now, I mean, it just goes to show you that, okay, this team is going to win a race, but when are they going to win a race? Because, you go to Texas, he's won there before. You go to Bristol, he's won there a couple times before. And then you go to Richmond, he's won a few times before. So I would say it's going to be any of those racetracks that the 18 team is going to have a shot to win.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I know as soon as I say this, everything's gonna go south. You will see Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney in victory lane before you see the 9 of Chase Elliott in victory lane this year. And that might be another disappointment that I have, is that Chase Elliott came in with so much momentum and has done very little with it. He's had some good runs. He hasn't had great runs.
Right.
He has all the equipment, all the talent. It's not translating. Something has to give with that 9 team. And when it does, look out. But it's not going to be anytime soon. Warmer weather is going to hit. They're going to go to tracks where Chase Elliott is fantastic at. When we get to the month of May and even into June, we get to those summer months. Now we're talking a little bit more about Chase Elliott. in a positive way versus what is wrong with the 9. So,
Right.
but like you mentioned, Ryan Blaney has been so lights out. It's amazing to me that this kid hasn't been, in victory lane yet. But I mean, you look at that 3-race run that Harvick had; it was just domination, domination, domination. This week he had a chance. He led all those laps in the second stage. Wins the second stage. He did look. He looked very good. What happens?
Yeah.
Like you said, Clint Bowyer is casting the net, and he's pulling him in. He's pulling him in. And when Clint got out front, there was no touching him. So
No.
what we're gonna see, my opinion, is you're gonna see Ryan Blaney's coming out party a lot sooner than you see Chase Elliott's.
I definitely agree, and if you go to Texas next Sunday, I really think it's going to come down between Ford and Toyota, like we've seen the last few mile-and-a-half races so far in 2018, and the way I look at it, the mile-and-a-half races, I think it's going to come down between Stewart-Haas, Penske, Fords, and then the Toyotas of Joe Gibbs and Furniture Row.
Absolutely, and just for S and G's real quick, I don't know what made me think of this, but Texas, I'm going out on a limb here. This is the first time in a lot of years that this quickly all 3 manufacturers have won. 6 races. Now we have all three models have won. Fantastic. I'm going out on a limb because I watched them. Let's forget the Harvick dominance on the mile-and-a-half. Let's think about Texas. Chevy's, I'm not saying who because I haven't looked at, we haven't gotten there yet. We're going to do that next week. Chevy is going to win at Texas. That's my opinion. A Chevy is going to win at Texas. When we get there, I will, next week on the episode, I will reveal who I think that Chevy will be in victory lane.
Okay.
So, plug away, young man. Plug away.
All right. So, Facebook, continue to follow me on NASCAR IndyCar Central. We are on Instagram at NASCAR IndyCar, Twitter at NASCAR Indy. Continue to follow my website, NASCARindy.org. We posted up the blogs yesterday for the truck race and the cup race at Martinsville and so forth. And also, I just want to give this little introduction, whatever it is. So next Wednesday, I am going to be starting my team meetings for the prison church retreat or prison Curcio, whatever you call it. So we're going to be doing a lot of those meetings on Wednesday in April, one Tuesday, and then one Saturday. And then I forgot to mention this. We have one more in May, and then before you know it, the week after that's the weekend. So just want to give you the heads up. Mother's Day weekend, and I know it's like about maybe a month from now, so I won't be able to catch any of the Kansas races. So, and not to mention my phone is going to be off that weekend too because I'm going to be in the prison, and and like I said, this prison that we're going to is in Norfolk, and a lot of strict rules. Clothing, we have to like wear something nice, instead of like anything like black and so forth in between. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and but like I said, like once I get out of the prison, I'll catch and see like what's going on that weekend in Kansas, like who ends up winning the races and whatnot. So really looking forward to that, and it's going to be a really great time.
When I hear you say I will be back when I get out of prison, I am glad it's for ministry and not for killing a family of 6.
Right.
Good on you for doing some great work for a great cause. Everybody should give you mad props for what you're about to do. As far as plugs go on my end, as always, the Loki and Jabroni Show live on Tuesday nights on Facebook. Wednesday, you can get our show on iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Jimmy Wisman's going to be on the phone this coming Tuesday, Crime and Sports. If you haven't listened to it, go download Crime and Sports. And if you're a racing fan again, you're watching the show, you're a racing fan, go find the Jeremy Mayfield episode. I believe it was episode 95. Funny stuff. His wife is a basket case, guys. If you've not listened to this episode, if you don't follow Shanna Mayfield on Twitter, go do it now. It's like following the Iron Sheik. It really is. The things that come out of her mouth are just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Going past that, if you go to the Loki and Jabroni Show Facebook page, please like it and donate. Our April fundraiser, which encompasses the whole network, is for a good friend, race fan, Chad Hatfield. He is raising money for something called Team World Vision. They raise money to provide clean water to countries that don't have access to clean water. And as he raises money, we're only raising money for him from April, but you can certainly donate any time of the year. The information's pinned to the top of the page on the Loki and Jabroni Show. When this is all said and done, he is running the New York City Marathon in November as a part of Team World Vision. 26.2 miles. A more God-fearing man I've never met in my life. You know, I love Chad to death. I consider him a brother, and I wish him well. I'm going to be donating in April, just like hopefully all of you do. The information will be at your fingertips. If you want it, find me, find Corey. We will get you the information. Donate to a great cause. Past that, cafepress.com/Loki Jabroni. Buy yourself some gear. Help both shows and Loki's Gaming Corner, or Eddie's writing, the Writer's Focus, I believe it's called. Great things that we're doing to expand the network and build an audience. So please do that. If you want to donate to any of these shows, it's www.patreon.com/Loki and Jabroni. It's all about the network. It's all about raising money. It's all about upgrading what we do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Corey, any final thoughts?
I just got to say, Billy Festa, if you're watching this tonight, I want to say hello and hope you enjoyed the races on Monday and so forth. And it was funny because yesterday he ends up texting me a picture of his NASCAR collection. And some of it, he had a couple of Bill Elliott stuff when he had like the McDonald's car, the Budweiser car and everything. And so it was funny because last night I pretty much said, okay, so we're going to compare NASCAR collections. So I texted him pretty much my NASCAR collection, and I can just tell you this: I have like a lot of good NASCAR stuff. Most of it's all like Richard Childress racing, and I got a couple of the KBM trucks, 2 cars that are from the movie Days of Thunder, which is legit my all-time favorite NASCAR movie. If anybody hasn't seen it, recommend watching it. Very quotable, best movie, without a doubt. And then, of course, I have the Jimmie Johnson poster up on my wall,
No!
which I've told so many times that it's a work in progress, and then yet again, like I've just been lazy on doing it. So, but
you know what? To be honest, leave it there. It's become a staple of the show. That would be like asking me, hey, can you shave? No, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Real quick, I don't know why I just thought of it. I told you last week I was going to wear the Speed Crate shirt, so here it is. It's Stuart Haas Racing. It's got a picture of the number 4 Jimmie Johnson Ford on it.
There it is.
On the back is a giant 4, and it says Kevin Harvick above it. This was one of the 5 items I got in my free Speed Crate, and you too can get a free Speed Crate simply by liking the show and by subscribing. If you get somebody to like the show, make sure they tell us that you sent them so you can get an extra entry. You want a free Speed Crate? This is the way to do it. Only one way. We're giving away free stuff. NASCAR Race Hub's not giving away free stuff. NASCAR America's certainly not giving away free stuff. C+J Speedway Review is. This is the place to be. I've got nothing else to plug other than my fantastic, gorgeous shirt, Speed Crate, the Loki and Jabroni Show, and this show, and my computer, which is now updating and has taken this entire episode to wake up again. So thanks a lot for Corey for being the stat man once again. Thank you to Eddie for producing the show, and thank all of you for watching. We will let you know when the next episode is because Corey needs to do things that are very much more important than talking about racing for an hour.
As part of the ministry.
Absolutely. God bless you, my son.
Thank you.
Walk on, and we will see you guys next week.
Good night.